Hey everybody, so I have another what sold video for you that we're going to run through fairly quickly here. I hope your weekend is going well. I am sharing with you some of the items that sold, or actually all of the items that sold in our online shop, such as eBay and Poshmark and Etsy. Looking back at that week, it doesn't look like it was like a crazy, wonderful reselling week, but just kind of a average amount of items sold. We're going to start off with eBay, and we're starting off with this vase. I loved this vase. I just love the look of it with the matte green finish on it and everything. When I saw it at Goodwill, our Goodwill has a lot of their hard goods are on top of the shelf over the clothing racks. And so they have like one shelf is like, I think it's over the jeans, is like all the vases and pottery and things like that. And so I spotted this vase, and I really do not know much about pottery or vintage pottery. I know a lot of people know the big names, the makers and things like that, and can spot them from a while, pretty far away. So when I reached for this vase, I was hoping that the bottom would have a signature on it that would make it a little bit easier to identify. And unfortunately, as you can see, it did not have a signature. But fortunately, we have some tools. We have some things that we can use when we're on the go. And that one thing I used on this was the Google app. So I just did a quick search on it, and it seems to be a fairly well-known or common pattern. So it came up pretty quickly, pretty easily. Peters and Reed. It's an ivy vase, and there were comps, there were others listed and everything. So I felt comfortable paying my $3.99 or $5.99 or whatever it was that Goodwill was asking for that vase. And I did end up selling this vase for $85. Then moving on to a sale that I am grateful for, but it's just not as much fun. It's a pair of sneakers by Under Armour. They actually turned out to be fishing shoes. These either got, I think Mr. Pish Posh picked them up. We were thrifting together. They're his size, so I think he was debating whether he wanted them or not. But anyway, we picked them up. We looks like they were on sale, but we ended up taking an offer for $50 for these Under Armour fishing shoes. Some Vivitar macro filters, just a little set in a case, $18 was the actual selling price on those. Then this was such a fun pattern. The brand is Wallace. Wallace is not like one of my top favorite flatware brands to sell or to find. Like sometimes I look at a pattern, I'm like, I'm so excited, and then I'm like, well, it's Wallace. And it always seems that even though a lot of it is sellable, and I wouldn't turn my nose up at it completely, it just doesn't sell for higher prices. And so I saw this pattern and I thought, oh, this will be great. This will be great. And then I found what the selling prices were, and it was just kind of average. So I still listed them, and I was happy to get a $12 offer on these two pieces, the meat fork and the slotted tablespoon, and was able to move those along. The next one is super, super fun. I am just having so much fun getting more into jewelry again. I was at the thrift store, one of the few thrift stores in my area that still offers jewelry. And they do have a case where you can't, the stuff in the case never goes on sale or anything like that. Most of their costume is out, and I have found some pretty good things on there. But I spotted this bracelet in the case, and I saw the enamel. Now, I didn't know for sure that it was going to be made in Denmark or anything like that. The brand maker is Meka, M-E-K-A. But I had heard of it once I asked to see the bracelet. I have heard of this brand, and they're kind of known for these whimsical enamel pieces. So these were sea turtles. It was kind of a smaller bracelet, and actually that worked in my favor because as the worker showed the bracelet to me, he's like, oh, I just showed this to someone else, but it was too small for her. So I was like, oh, too bad. Anyway, they were asking $10 for this bracelet, and so I paid that and ended up selling it for $80 in, I don't know, maybe less than a week. Here's another example of an item that I list that I know nothing about. I found this at the bins one day. I usually will look up things that are sealed. I don't know why this kind of came across my attention. It had a barcode, as you can see, so that's an easy search on eBay. And I saw enough comps to make me decide to throw it in my cart. Again, the bins, I'm paying by weight, and it didn't cost me hardly anything. $22.99 is what that sold for, and I would say it probably took a couple months to sell. Next up is something that also took a little while to sell, but it was over on Ruby Lane for a bit. Andrea by Sadek. Is that how you say that? It's like a little trinket dish, but it starts off as a candle, and once your candle is done, you can clean it out and have a little trinket jar. That sold for $20. Oh, my favorite pattern. I love this vintage Franciscan starburst pattern. I think I've talked about the bowls that I sold before this that were in better condition and they sold for more, but these were as is. They had a few little issues. You can see some of the chipping or the glaze missing. See, there was a couple little spots, flea bite type things around the edges, and so those still sold for $49.99. I do have some plates in my inventory that I need to get listed. These bowls had been pulled out, were separate, and they were in the best condition out of all of it. So the plates I have to pull out, I have to look at and see if Barkeeper's Friend or anything like that will help the utensil marks, and then we'll see what we can get for asking prices on those. Let's see, a water bottle picked up at the bins at our clearance store. And it is just a cycling water bottle for a Missoula Bicycle Works place, and Mr. Pish Posh sold that for $20. Here's another fun necklace. It just feels like this type of necklace. I mean, I'm happy with the $25 I got, but looking at it, I just feel like it should sell for much more. Like my starting price should be higher, right? This was an offer I think I took or sent or something, $25. There was, condition-wise, I put as is. The clasp was a replacement on there. And then there was just some wear on the back, which wouldn't be that big of a deal. But even ones in great shape, the selling prices were just not crazy high. I just think they should be, but it's possibly because I love modernist style jewelry. Okay, but Renoir is a good name to keep an eye out for in the vintage jewelry world. Okay, a set of vintage fashion doll hangers. So these are just hangers to hold like Barbie clothes and things like that. I think these were in a lot with some other Barbie things, and I separated these 29 pieces out, and we sold them for $17.99. Another Mr. Pish Posh sale coming up. He was so excited. We were on vacation recently, and he is the one actually who spotted the estate sale sign, and we went up, followed the signs, went up, found this estate sale, and in the part of the estate sale was the previous owner's like work shed kind of thing, and he found 2 or 3 pairs of these safety glasses new in the package. And this is the type of thing that just gets overlooked. They charged us like $1 a piece, but he's sold these before, not this particular set, but he's found vintage new old stock safety glasses, and they generally sell. So this pair sold for $34.99. Sold a cross-stitch kit. This one did take a while. It's a gold collection, which is generally something you want to keep an eye out for. Not all gold collection kits will sell for $100. This one sold after a few months for $32.99. Another piece of jewelry, a pair of earrings by the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I'll show you the marking on those. They're marked MMA, and then I think I figured out the MAD was the Museum of Arts and Design or something like that. So anyway, they're, as you can see, they're not that big. Nothing like Metropolitan Museum of Art or any museum jewelry actually does sell pretty well. A lot of times there's something a little bit more ornate or aged looking, or something from another culture or time period, and so those can sell for like really good prices. The next two I shared before in my one of my coffee mug videos. These were the two studio pottery mugs that ended up going to the same buyer, and they were both Montana pottery artists, potters, and so it was a local Montana buyer who bought both of those mugs. And we're finishing up that week. Here's another pair of glasses, Mr. Pish Posh. We were at a thrift store, and he saw these on the counter, and he's like, "Ooh, Amber Vision." Do you guys remember Amber Vision? Very 80s. It has those orange lenses, and these sold for $29.99. And last but not least, I believe, yes, was this pair of Prana pants. Now, normally you don't get $70 for a pair of Prana pants. At least I don't, but they were vintage, like vintage as in Y2K vintage, right? Like not like old. I don't even know how old Prana is as a brand, but they had some features on them that you just don't see, on newer pants. And so we went high and got $69.99. Okay, popping over to Posh, slow week on Posh, but a nice sale that I had, this bodysuit, sold for $75. This had been listed for way too long, but I think it had its original tag. I mean, I know it did, but I think the asking price, was it on there? No, I think I just looked it up, and the asking price for Fleur de Mal was like really high. So I had my price pretty high. It was one of the few situations I used a stock photo. I don't use it as my main photo, and I hardly ever do this, but I just had this feeling like you needed to see this bodysuit like on a person to understand what it was doing. Does that make sense? Anyway, $75 for this bodysuit was not bad. It just took a while. And then another pair of vintage like Y2K era pants. These were O'Neill, not a huge high selling brand or anything like that, but sold for $25 fairly quickly within a couple weeks. And then here's my Libbey Celestial mug I found on vacation. Found it, well, it was on that same trip that I was just talking about as the estate sale, but like later at a thrift store. And they had their big thing of mugs, and sure enough, there at the bottom was my Libbey Celestial blue glass mug. This one I felt like, I don't know that it was necessarily dishwasher damaged. It could have been. It just didn't feel as vibrant. The colors were a little more muted than ones I've sold before. And I ended up selling this one for $40. Moving over to Etsy, slow pattern, little section, middle of October pattern sales were pretty slow for me. I probably was not adding them very often. $17 for this pattern, and the same buyer bundled it with this $17 pattern by McCall's, like 1990s style pattern. Then over in the other Etsy shop, a few fun vintage sales. This set of salt and pepper shakers, just a Hawaii souvenir. It says Aloha Hawaii, has a very mid-century look, but it had its original box, which was what made me grab it at the yard sale for like $1. It was just super fun. I just love original packaging. I love fonts that were popular back then, and it's just fun to see it. Okay, then this mug I've talked about before in my mug videos. And I think it was one of the first mug videos, and I shared some of our sales that, we had, like some of our scores, some of our better mug sales. And I had come across quite a few of these Corning military Watchman mugs, and ended up just kind of slowly selling them in my Etsy shop for like $40, $45 or something like that. So I found one of these at our clearance store, our bins, not that long ago, and got it listed a few months back, obviously, because we're talking about sales from a few months back. And the thing with these, they're milk glass. They're ones you definitely want to keep an eye out for. I'll show you the bottom. It's kind of hard to see, but it says Corning, made in the USA. The logo on the bottom is a glass blower. He looks like he's blowing a trumpet or something like that. But the thing with this mug is that it has no handle. So I know I've talked about this before, but in case you're new, no handle. So you wrap your hand around it. It's also called like a hand warmer style mug. And it was military, so the watchmen's would use it. You know, if they're up all night and outside, they could wrap their hands around a nice warm coffee mug. Anyway, that's the story that I have heard. $38 for that mug. Then same thrift store that I found the Libbey mug. It was this awesome thrift store in Sandpoint, Idaho. And it just was awesome in the fact that it just had so much stuff, because it just gave us, you know, a bunch of time. You could just dig and look at stuff. And to me, that's all part of the fun, is that experience, right? So I saw these little vases with their little stands, cloisonné. I like butchered that, but anyway. And I double checked. They're little. They're just a few inches tall. And so I looked them up real quick on eBay, and I saw a set of 3 selling for like a pretty good price. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to get these. I only paid like $1.20 a piece for them. And so they sold for about $10 a piece. So $55 for these little vases that I just decided to lot them up as found. But I love the little wooden stands that they were on as well. Here's a picture. You can see them separated. Okay, and then vintage Canon nylon stockings sold for $22. Again, original packaging. We love that. And the last sale is some flatware. So appropriate to end with flatware. $49 for these 7 dinner forks by Leonard Silver. For this, it's the style that sells it. I mean, they're vintage and everything, but this style, very colonial with the 3 tines, is one of those kind of like, it just sells usually no matter what brand it is, but some for better prices than others. Okay, I'm going to wrap up this video, and I hope you guys are having a wonderful weekend. I hope your sales have been going well. Busy time of year for a lot of people. I understand that. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll have some more fun videos the rest of this month. I think we're just going to focus on fun. Okay. And I'll talk to you guys later.